The double doors of the emergency room flung open with a crash. That shattered the quiet tension of the night shift. Paramedics surged through, their stretcher bearing a woman barely clinging to life, her military fatigue soaked through with blood, a stark contrast to the sterile white of the hospital floor. Machines began their frantic course, beeping out erratic rhythms that screamed of fading hope. Blood pressure was plummeting, pulse weakening with every heartbeat. Dr. Ethan Parker, though worn to the bone after 24 relentless hours on duty, felt every ounce of exhaustion dissolve the instant he saw her, female, early 30s, severe internal trauma, vehicular collision, BP falling, pulse thready, the lead paramedic relayed. His tone clipped but urgent. Ethan's hands moved with the fluid grace of someone who had long since made peace with pressure. He was already assessing wounds as the trauma team scrambled around him, prepping for emergency surgery. Then came a presence that chilled more than the sterile air. Hospital Administrator Richard Dawson appeared beside Ethan, his tone low but ironclad. "She's not in our system. Protocol requires transfer to the VA." Ethan didn't lift his head. He was too busy slowing the hemorrhage that could take her life any second now. "She won't survive the trip," he replied flatly. "I'm taking her to surgery. I'm giving you a direct order, Dr. Parker. We can't I don't care what we can or can't afford," Ethan snapped, finally meeting Dawson's icy stare. "I didn't take an oath to count costs while someone dies, and so, in a single heartbeat, Ethan made a choice, one that could cost him everything. He'd spent years building, but some decisions, the brave ones, are forged not in comfort, but in chaos. He couldn't know then that this act of defiance wouldn't just save a life, but breathe healing into wounds he himself had buried deep, because sometimes salvation doesn't come with the trumpet's cry. Sometimes it enters quietly, bleeding, broken, and wholly unexpected. The morning sun slanted through faded curtains, gilding the modest kitchen in soft gold. Ethan Parker stood over a pan at the stove, dark circles carved under his eyes, proof of another sleepless night. The kitchen bore signs of quiet resilience, crayon drawings stuck to the fridge, a calendar half filled with school notes, a small table set for two, never three. Smoke curled from the pan. Ethan sighed and scraped the charred pancake into the trash bin, joining to others that hadn't survived his half attention. He poured fresh batter with a weary sigh. "Just a warm-up round, Lily patted. Real ones are coming." 10-year-old Lily Parker patted in, already dressed for school, backpack slung over her narrow shoulder. Her hair was pulled into a chaotic ponytail, clearly done without help. Ethan gestured her over without a word. His surgeon's hands, so steady in crisis, became tender instruments of care. As he gently untangled her hair and redid the ponytail with careful precision, "Did you save her?" Lily asked quietly, Ethan's hand still. "The woman from last night. She made it through surgery," he said softly. "That's why you were late again," she murmured, her voice carrying no resentment, only the matter-of-fact understanding of a child who had long accepted the reality of having a father who saved lives, while grieving the loss of one he couldn't. "Mom always said your patients needed you more than we did sometimes." Ethan turned her gently to face him, emotion flickering in his eyes. "Your mom was right about a lot of things, but she was wrong about that. No one needs me more than you do." The phone rang, slicing through the quiet. Ethan picked it up, and as he listened, his face hardened. Lily watched, silently decoding every subtle shift in his expression. She'd become an expert at reading her father's grief in silence ever since her mother, Sarah, had passed 3 years ago. "I understand. Yes, I'll be there." He hung up and stared at the wall for a long moment. "Just grown-up stuff, Lilybug. Nothing for you to worry about." He forced a smile, but it barely touched his eyes. Turning back to the stove, he flipped a perfectly golden pancake onto a plate. "Breakfast is served." Lily nodded and began eating, eyes drifting to the hallway. Framed photos lined the walls, images of a woman with her same eyes, same smile. One photo lay face down. It had remained that way ever since the night Sarah died, the night Ethan's grief cracked open, and he shattered more than just glass. At Cedar Grove County Hospital, Lieutenant Maya Collins stirred to consciousness, disoriented. Pain pulsed through her core, radiating from tightly wrapped bandages around her abdomen. The ceiling above her spun gently as she fought to piece together her surroundings. "Welcome back," a nurse said softly, checking her vitals. "You gave us quite the scare." Maya's voice rasped like sandpaper. "What happened?" "Car crash. Route 9. You were heading back to base when you went off the road." Maya reached for the offered cup of water, sipping gratefully as shards of memory pierced her mind, headlights veering into her lane. The overwhelming panic, the flashbacks from deployment bombs, screams, dust. She'd been having those episodes more often lately, but she lied. "Don't remember much." "How bad is it?" "Lacerated liver, internal bleeding, fractured ribs. But you made it, thanks to Dr. Parker. He performed emergency surgery." "One more RN," she trailed off, her expression dimming. "But he's in trouble now." The nurse added reluctantly, "There's a board meeting. They're saying he violated protocol by treating you. He was supposed to transfer you to the VA." Maya tried to sit up despite the fire in her ribs. "He's being punished for saving my life." "Hospital politics," the nurse said gently. "Rest. You've got a long recovery ahead." "I need to be at that meeting," Maya whispered, still rising behind the pain. Across town, Ethan sat in his car outside the school, watching Lily vanish through the front doors. Once she was safely inside, his composure unraveled. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles pale. The morning's call echoed in his mind. Suspension pending review, unauthorized treatment, protocol violation, 3 years of sacrifice, triple shifts, budget cuts, missed moments with Liliel now teetering on the edge. His eyes flicked to the passenger seat, where bills lay like silent accusations. Sarah's treatment had drained their savings. The mortgage was overdue. Without his income, 2 months, maybe less. "What would you tell me to do, Sarah?" he whispered to the silence. No answer came. None ever had. The next morning, the boardroom was packed. Ethan sat alone at the long table, facing a row of stony faces. Administrator Dawson's smirk barely concealed his satisfaction. Ethan had no legal counsel, no prepared statement, just the quiet certainty of his conviction. "I made the only choice a doctor could make," he said when asked if he understood the charges. Dawson launched into a monologue about cost control, procedure, protocol when the door suddenly swung open. All turned to stare as Lieutenant Maya Collins entered, defying every reason to still be standing. Hospital gown half covered by a wrinkled military jacket, and fur pole dragging beside her. She was pale, trembling, and radiant in her determination. Lieutenant Collins, Dr. Westfield, the chief of medicine, began. "You should be in recovery. With all due respect, sir." Maya's voice, though fragile, cut through the room like a blade. "I should be dead." A stunned silence fell. "By your protocols, I should have been sent to AVA Facility 40 minutes away while bleeding internally. Dr. Parker chose to save my life instead." Dawson began to protest. "The issue isn't quality of care." "No," Maya interrupted, her eyes fierce. "It's that you're punishing a man for choosing humanity over policy, for refusing to let bureaucracy bury another soldier, for caring." And just like that, the tide shifted. Because healing doesn't always start with medicine. Sometimes it begins in the decision to care, to risk, to act when no one else will. Dr. Ethan Parker saved Maya's life that night, but she would save his in return. And in the quiet moments that followed, in pancakes that didn't burn, in ponytails tied with love, and framed photos finally set, a bright redemption came not with grand fanfare, but with soft grace. Because the most profound healing comes where we least expect it, and from the most unlikely source. The boardroom was heavy with judgment, the kind that settles in long before the gavel falls. "This is about hospital resources and protocol," Dawson insisted, his voice as hollow as it was polished. "No," Maya interrupted, her voice firm, rising from the wounded core of her being. "This is about whether this hospital exists to save lives or to save money. even as she stood with surgical bandages pressed beneath her jacket. Her posture bore the unmistakable steel of a soldier. "We have protocols in combat, too," she continued, eyes steady. "But if any soldier lets a teammate die because of bureaucracy, he doesn't get demoted. He gets court-martialed." Silence felt like a cold wind. Ethan sat still, jaw tight, listening. Her words were fire, but he could see it in the eyes across the table. The outcome had already been written in stone before she walked through the door. When the vote came, it was swift, 4-1 in favor of termination. Only Dr. West felt the chief of medicine had stood by him. Even he couldn't meet Ethan's gaze as he cast the lone dissenting vote. Outside, in the parking lot, Maya caught up to him, her breath ragged, skin pale from the effort. "I can't believe they fired you," she said, voice raw. "You saved my life." Ethan turned his eyes to the hospital. 15 years of service, of sacrifice, all dismissed in a few signatures and a vote. "It's not your fault," he said, as much to himself as to her. "They've been looking for an excuse. I cost too much. This isn't justice. I have people in the military. We could go to the press, make this public." Ethan shook his head gently, his voice low. "And then what? Small-town doctor goes to war with big hospital. Even if I win, who hires a whistleblower?" He softened when he saw the guilt in her eyes. "Right now, I just have to figure out how to tell my daughter and find a way to start over." A new determination settled in Maya's posture. "I need someone to monitor my stitches. The VA won't see me for weeks. I'll pay you, privately." He hesitated, "Consider it my first step toward making this right," she added, against every instinct that told him to distance himself from the past 2 weeks. He found himself handing her a slip of paper. "1 visit. That's it," he said. The next afternoon, the doorbell rang just as Lily returned from school. She froze on the walkway, backpack sliding from her shoulder, gaze fixed on the unfamiliar figure in fatigue standing at their door. "Are you a soldier?" she asked cautiously, her voice tamed with awe. "Not anymore," Maya replied gently. "Lieutenant Maya Collins?" Lily's eyes widened. "Did you fight in a war, Lily?" Ethan's voice came from behind, more a warning than a greeting. "Lieutenant Collins is here for a checkup." "It's okay," Maya said, her smile kind. She knelt slightly to meet Lily's eyes. "I served in Afghanistan. I was a combat medic, kind of like your dad, but for soldiers. That changed everything." Lily was immediately captivated. As Ethan checked Maya's stitches, Lily peppered her with questions about medals, medevacs, what it was like patching up soldiers in the middle of gunfire. Maya answered with warmth and restraint, editing just enough to shield Lily from the bloodier truths without losing honesty. As Maya stood to leave, Lily gave her own prognosis. "Your stitches look great. My dad's the best at fixing people." "I believe that," Maya replied softly, meeting Ethan's eyes with something close to admiration. "We have spaghetti on Thursdays," Lily continued with a grin. "It's the only thing Dad doesn't mess up." Ethan flushed. "Lily, it's true," she shrugged. "He burns toast." Maya paused for a moment, caught between amusement and something more uncertain. "I don't have plans, but only if I can bring dessert." That first dinner turned into a ritual. Every Thursday, Maya would show up with a plastic container of store-bought cake or pie, never homemade. "Inherited my father's kitchen curse," she joked. The early dinners were hesitant, filled with polite small talk and guarded glances, but gradually, something warm and unspoken settled between them. A rhythm. Lily, once shy and still grieving, began to bloom under Maya's gentle attention. She listened to her stories with wide-eyed wonder, absorbing not just facts, but affection. Maya had a way of making Lily feel important, and that did something to Ethan, something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. To him, these evenings became sanctuaries, moments of calm amid a life spinning out of control. His job search had gone nowhere. Every application returned with polite declines. The severance from the hospital would cover bills for another month, maybe 2. The weight of financial ruin pressed in from all sides. For Maya, the Parker home became a refuge, Her base housing felt like a tomb, cold, lonely, haunted by memories she couldn't outrun. But here, in the clutter of a lived-in home, with laughter over burned garlic bread and Lily's chatter about school, her nightmares faded. She started inventing reasons to drop by books for Lily, groceries she'd forget to use, homework help she insisted she enjoyed. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Maya found Ethan at the kitchen table, surrounded by job listings and unpaid bills. "Any luck?" she asked, setting a fresh mug of coffee next to him. "A few leads." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "But they're hours away. What mean uprooting Lily?" He glanced toward the hallway, where family photos line the walls. "She visits her mother's grave every Saturday, tells her about her week. If we move—" His voice broke off. She didn't need him to finish. They sat in silence, not awkward, but the kind born of mutual scars, a quiet companionship that needed no explanation. "What about you?" he asked eventually. "When do you go back to active duty?" "Medical review next month," she said, eyes lowering. "They'll decide if I'm fit." "And are you?" She hesitated, then gave the most honest answer she'd ever spoken aloud. "I don't sleep, and when I do, I'm back there. The ambush, the explosion, I couldn't save them all." "Survivor's guilt," Ethan murmured, his voice knowing. "I know the signs. Professional opinion." "Doctor, no," he said, looking at her. "Personal. After Sarah died, I kept thinking maybe if I'd seen the signs earlier, pushed harder, something. I knew I did everything I could, but knowing doesn't help. Not where it hurts." It was the first time he said Sarah's name to her, a threshold crossed. Maya reached out, fingers brushing his. "Does it get easier?" "No," he said softly. "Not easier. Just different. You build a life around the hole. Sometimes it still hurts to breathe. But Lily helps. Purpose helps." He turned his hand, held hers. No words passed. No need. They didn't let go until the clock struck 11. 2 weeks later, Ethan ran into Dr. Wilson, a former colleague in the pharmacy. "You should know the truth," Wilson said, leaning in. "Dawson had to make cuts. Your department was targeted because your outcomes were too good and too expensive. The Marine was just the excuse." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter. I have to leave town to work. There's an opening in Burlington, 4 hours away." Wilson frowned. "What about Lily? She needs stability, security. I can't give her either here." That evening, Maya arrived to find the living room half-packed. Cardboard boxes towered around furniture. Lily was at a sleepover, spared, for now, from watching her world dismantle. "You got the job," she said, the words hitting her like a blow to the chest. "Ellington Medical. They need a trauma surgeon," Ethan replied, busying himself with packing so he didn't have to meet her eyes. "We move next week." She stood frozen in the doorway, groceries forgotten at her side. "That's good, right? A fresh start." "It's necessary," he corrected softly. "Were you going to tell me or just vanish?" He stopped. "Maya, I have to do what's right for Lily. You understand that?" "I do," she said. Her voice wavered, a rare crack in her usual strength. "I know we haven't known each other long, but you and Lily, you've given me something I didn't even know I'd lost." "What's that?" "Peace," she said. "I don't dream as much when I'm here. I feel human again." He looked at her then, not with a doctor's cold detachment, not as a patient, but as a man standing on the edge of something terrifyingly real. "I haven't felt this alive since losing Sarah." Maya exhaled slowly, trying to anchor herself in the whirlwind of emotions that had become her daily norm. "But I have to be practical," she said, almost more to herself than to Ethan. "Lily needs stability." Ethan watched her, his expression unreadable. "The military hospital on base has an opening for civilian trauma surgeons," she continued, her voice faltering at the edges. "The pay is solid, and you wouldn't have to move again." A flicker of skepticism crossed Ethan's face like a cloud momentarily covering the sun. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, cautious. "You don't owe me anything." Maya hesitated. a war brewing behind her eyes. Maybe I'm being selfish, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I just need you both in my life. The air between them shifted, charged with a quiet intensity, a fragile hope neither dared to fully name. Then her phone rang, slicing through the moment. The screen flashed her commander's name. She answered briskly, her voice snapping into the sharp, clipped cadence of a soldier. Ethan watched the color drain from her face. "What is it?" he asked once she hung up. She looked away, her voice tight. "They pushed up my fitness review. Someone filed a concern, said I might be mentally unfit for duty after the crash." Her words were mechanical now, stripped of feeling, locked away behind years of training. "My career, it's on the line." Without another word, she turned and left, but her rigid posture betrayed what she couldn't say: fear, shame, maybe even betrayal. Ethan stood alone in the half-packed living room, surrounded by cardboard boxes and fragments of unfinished futures. It felt like something irreplaceable was slipping through his fingers. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, her quiet voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Daddy, do you like Maya?" she asked, her eyes wide in the dark. "Like you like Mom?" He sat on the edge of her bed, weighing his answer carefully. "It's complicated, Lily." "Why?" She pressed gently. "She makes you smile. You hardly ever smiled after Mom died." Her small hand wrapped around his. "Before she died," Lily whispered, "Mom told me your heart was big enough to love again. I think she'd like Maya." Her innocent honesty pierced through the fog Ethan had been lost in for months. In that moment, clarity arrived, not like a sudden thunderclap, but like the gentle breaking of dawn. Maya stood alone before the Military Medical Review Board, her spine impossibly straight in her dress uniform despite the lingering pain in her body and soul. 3 senior officers scanned her file while the base psychologist recited clinical findings. "Lieutenant Collins exhibits signs of post-traumatic stress," the psychologist noted. "Flashbacks, insomnia, hypervigilance. The crash appears to have been triggered by a panic episode consistent with PTSD. I recommend medical leave and mandatory therapy before she is considered for active duty." Each word felt like another, breaking the wall forming around her future. Maya clenched her jaw. "With respect, sir," she said, her tone firm but respectful, "I am fit for duty. The incident was isolated. Your record is commendable, Lieutenant," the senior officer said kindly, "but we can't take unnecessary risks." Just then, the door opened. Ethan entered wearing a sharp suit, his demeanor calm, polished, and unreadable. "Apologies for the interruption," he said. "I'm Dr. Ethan Parker, Lieutenant Collins' treaty physician. This is a closed hearing." The chairman frowned. "I understand," Ethan replied calmly, "but accurate medical insight is essential to your decision." He handed over a folder. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. She hadn't told him about the review. She hadn't authorized this. The chairman scanned the file, brows lifting slightly. "You've been providing ongoing care?" "Yes, sir. I've overseen her physical recovery as her surgeon, and I've also observed her psychological state over the past month. Lieutenant Collins doesn't need discharge, she needs support, the kind we owe all those who serve. You're suggesting we delay medical separation. I'm saying PTSD is not a death sentence for a career. It's treatable." Maya's made enormous progress. With structured therapy and a transitional post, she could be back to full duty in 6 months. The board conferred quietly. Maya sat frozen, fury and vulnerability warring inside her. When the final verdict came, 6 months of limited duty. With mandatory therapy, she saluted crisply, waited to be dismissed, and marched into the hallway. Then she turned on Ethan. "How dare you?" she hissed, trembling. "You had no right to speak on my behalf." "You're right," he said gently. "I crossed the line, but I couldn't let them end your career when I knew you can heal. By telling them I'm broken? No," he said softly. "By telling them you're human. And that healing doesn't mean weakness, it means strength." Her anger cracked. Beneath it was the ache of someone who carried too much for too long. "How did you even know, Lily?" "She overheard you on the phone. She was worried. At the mention of Lily, Maya's shoulders softened. I have to fight my own battles, and you have, Ethan replied. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let someone stand beside you. Their conversation was cut short by a wave of new concerns sweeping the base news. That Cedar Grove County Hospital was facing public outrage over staff layoffs and declining patient care. A forum was being held. The town was angry. You should go, Maya urged. Why? That job is gone. This isn't about a job. It's about making sure no other doctor has to choose between ethics and orders. The hospital conference room was packed to the brim, people standing against walls. Emotions simmering. Ethan stood quietly at the back, documents and hand evidence of how hospital policies had quietly twisted patient care into profit. Margins dot when his turn came. Silence swept the crowd. Many recognized him, the surgeon who'd saved their children, held their hands in trauma, stayed long after shifts ended. I'm not here to fight for my job, he began. I'm here because this community deserves better. He laid out everything: the pressure to discharge too soon, the focus on billing over healing, the abandonment of basic medical ethics. Then the doors opened. Maya walked in, straight-backed, in full-dress uniform. Behind her were Marines, her brothers in arms. They stood tall, solid, a living reminder of what service and sacrifice truly meant. When Ethan finished, Maya stepped to the microphone. I'm Lieutenant Maya Collins. 6 weeks ago, I would have died if Dr. Parker had followed protocol. Instead of his conscience, her voice rang out, unwavering, in combat. We have a rule: no one gets left behind. Dr. Parker lived by that rule, and he was punished for it. Is this how you treat heroes in your community? The room erupted in applause. Citizens rose one by one, sharing their own stories, lives saved, losses mourned, and complications from a system that had begun to fail them all. Under mounting pressure, the hospital board relented. The chairman, pale and tense, addressed the crowd. In light of these concerns, we will launch a full review of recent policies, and we'd like to offer Dr. Parker his position back, effective immediately. Maya glanced sideways at Ethan, her expression unreadable but hopeful. In that instant, they both knew this wasn't just about saving a career or healing a wound. It was about reclaiming something far more profound: purpose, hope, and the belief that even after great loss, life can be stitched back together stronger than before. A surge of applause rippled through the packed hall, but Ethan didn't bask in it. He shook his head gently, stepping back toward the microphone, a quiet resolve steady in his voice. I didn't come here to ask for my job back, he said, his eyes sweeping the sea of faces, some familiar, some skeptical, most expectant. I came so that no other doctor is ever forced to choose between doing what's right and keeping their job. A hush fell. With unwavering calm, Ethan laid out a proposal that was as revolutionary as it was humane: a board of community oversight to keep the hospital administration accountable, full transparency in reporting patient outcomes, and a return at long last to protocols that place patient lives above profit margins. The ideals that had once cost him his career were now demands clear, non-negotiable, and echoing across the room with conviction. By the end of that meeting, the board, after tense deliberation and reluctant glances, agreed. Every condition, every change. And in a poetic turn of justice, Administrator Dawson was placed on administrative leave, pending an internal investigation. Outside the hospital, the night air carried the warmth of celebration. Former colleagues and well-wishers surrounded Ethan, offering handshakes, hugs, and quiet nods of respect. But in that moment, it was Maya he looked for, the one who had stood beside him through every unspoken ache. You could have taken your job back, she said softly as they found a sliver of space alone beneath the darkening sky. Why didn't you? Because Ethan paused, searching for the right words, ones that carried weight. That didn't cheapen the truth. Some things matter more than a title, like integrity. His voice faltered for a beat, then steadied again. Like you. The kiss that followed wasn't passionate or grand, it was quiet, uncertain, filled with a fragile tenderness of the people learning to feel again. It was a beginning, Not an ending a shared breath across a boundary neither of them could retreat from now. A small voice broke the moment. Does this mean we're not moving anymore? Lily stood with Dr. Wilson behind her, hope written in every corner of her small, luminous face. Ethan knelt down, Maya at his side, and looked into the child's searching eyes. How would you feel, he asked gently, about me working at the base hospital instead? That way we could stay right here, near Mom, and maybe Mia could visit. Even more. Lily didn't answer with words. She threw her arms around both of them tight, unfiltered, joyful, in that spontaneous embrace. There on the sidewalk beneath the glow of streetlights and starlight, a family began to take shape. Not perfect. A real dot 6 months later, morning light filtered through the kitchen windows of the Parker home, casting golden warmth across the tableau of quiet transformation. There were new rhythms now. Boots lined up by the Dormia's military pair necks, to Ethan's hospital shoes and Lily's muddy sneakers. A service photo hung with pride among the family portraits. On the fridge, a calendar tracked 3 separate lives now woven together. Ethan flipped pancakes while Maya sat braiding Lily's hair, their small talk mingling with the soft hum of the morning news. They're calling it the Parker Protocol, Maya said with a small smile, nodding toward the TV. Patient care over profit margins. Dad's famous. Lily beamed. Ethan laughed, bashful. I just did what was right. Exactly why they named it after you, Maya replied, accepting the mug he handed her. Their fingers brushed an unremarkable gesture on the surface, but thick with the weight of shared mornings, of quiet devotion. Later that day, they stood together beneath the solemn shade of the cemetery trees. It was their monthly ritual, a sacred pause to honor the woman who had shaped so much of their hearts. Lily knelt at her mother Sarah's grave, placing fresh flowers with care. Maya stood a respectful distance back, as always present, but never intrusive. Mom, guess what? Lily chirped brightly, her voice innocent yet anchored by memory. I got an A on my science project. Maya helped me make a real medical kit, like the one she used in Afghanistan. Ethan watched his daughter with awe, still moved by her resilience. When she finished, he placed a hand on her shoulder and gave a gentle squeeze. Why don't you ask Maya to come join us? Lily didn't hesitate. She grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her toward the headstone the first time Maya had ever come so close. Ethan knelt beside the grave, voice tender. Sarah, this is Maya. She's the one who made us laugh again. Maya slowly knelt, her gaze reverent. She removed the service medal from her pocket and placed it gently among the petals. I promise, she whispered, eyes misted, to look after them both. The words weren't meant for anyone else, but they were heard in the soul. That weekend, the base hospital hosted a fundraiser for the new civilian trauma center, an initiative born from the very battle Ethan had once fought. Alone? Now, he stood not as a martyr, but as a leader. Surrounded by colleagues who had become believers in his cause, a young doctor approached him, nervous but sincere. Your case is why I chose emergency medicine, she confessed. You taught us that the right choice isn't always the easy one. Across the room, Maya stood in conversation with her commanding officer. Her restricted duty status had recently been upgraded. Now, she trained incoming combat medics, passing on her knowledge, shaping futures. The nightmares still visited, though less often now, tempered by therapy and the newfound anchor she had in Ethan and Lily. That evening, their backyard brimmed with laughter and warmth. Ethan's co-workers, Maya's comrades, Lily's friends all gathered beneath twinkling lights. Beneath the old oak tree, Maya pulled Ethan aside. I got my new assignment, she said quietly, nerves fluttering behind her smile. Ethan tensed. Was this it? The end of their fragile but beautiful normal? Training post? She continued. Right here at the base. It's permanent. Relief hit him so hard he nearly lost his footing. He leaned against the tree, overwhelmed. You're staying? I'm staying. Before either could say more, Lily's voice called from the patio. Cake time. That night, with the house quiet and Lily tucked into bed, Ethan and Maya curled on the couch flipping through a photo album, new photos, this time, ones with Maya in them, ones that showed not just moments, but milestones, a life, piece by piece, coming together. I never thought I'd have this, Maya murmured. After everything I saw, after what I lost, I didn't think I deserved happiness. Sarah used to say, Ethan replied gently, that the most broken pieces, when fit back together, form the strongest bonds. Maya reached into her pocket and handed him a small wrapped gift. Inside was a carved wooden puzzle piece. I had it made, she said, to represent the missing piece. Ethan studied it, rough on one side, scarred and weathered, but polished and smooth on the other. It bore the marks of its making, and yet it fit perfectly. Not to replace what was lost, she whispered, but to make room for something new. On the mantel sat an unframed photo of them at the lake, Ethan, Lily, and Maya, all laughing beneath summer skies. Next to it, the old pictures of Sarah remain, not hidden, not forgotten, but woven in an irreplaceable chapter in the fuller story of their lives. Ethan reached for Maya's hand as the last light of day streamed through the windows, casting gold upon the photograph's past and present. Yes, the empty spaces would always exist. Loss had carved them deep, but now they were no longer defined by absence. They were defined by what had been built around them, by courage, by healing, by love. Because sometimes the most profound restoration doesn't come from forgetting the pain. It comes from having the strength to walk through it together and build something new, one healing moment at a time.